Hello there. Hola, Oscar.
Hola, ¿cómo estamos?
Bien, ¿y vos?
Bien, bien, aquí un hermoso sábado por la mañana.
Así es, tenemos a los pajaritos cantando.
Sí, sí,
Estamos emocionados.
eso es un muy buen presagio de este live streaming del día de hoy. Así que esperemos que nos salga todo bien y que lo disfruten todos los que están conectándose el día de hoy.
Así es, y para todos los que se están conectando, ya saben que tienen aquí el chat en vivo donde van a poder dejar sus preguntas, comentarios, pueden también compartir este video en sus redes para llegar a más personas. Y no vamos a esperar mucho, vamos a tener, de hecho, como les mencionábamos, un live completamente en inglés, así que vamos a hacer el switch y vamos a cambiar al inglés y vamos a invitar a nuestro invitado del día de hoy, a Yüksel, a que se nos una aquí unos minutitos antes de su charla para conocerlo un poco. Así que se los presento. Hi, Yüksel.
Hey.
How are you?
Hello.
Thank you. How are you?
Good. Really excited for this talk.
Yeah, they're excited for this talk.
So am I. So am I.
Well,
Yeah,
tell us a little bit about you.
I actually have a slide for that. Let's open that.
Let's do that.
My name is Yüksel. I'm a full-time lawyer, so I'm not a full-time developer. And what I actually like to develop on are voice platforms. That's why I call myself a voice app developer. Basically, for the past year or so, before I met Google Assistant and other voice platforms, I was developing chatbots for fun, on Facebook or other messaging platforms. And after Google Assistant, after I realized that there was a huge deal about voice applications, and they were really similar in terms of development perspective to chatbots. And I thought I'd give it a shot, and I really, really liked it. Actually, I liked it more than I've ever done before, development-wise. So I decided that should be it, and I decided to develop voice applications. I developed the first voice application, first Google Assistant Action in Turkey, and then that put me under, Google's radar, so to speak. So I was already a part of GDG communities, and they asked if we could hold some Google Assistant event. And at that event, I realized I like to share what I know. So I joined a couple more events, and next thing I know, I'm a community volunteer, and I really like being one. So that's why I have been a Google developer expert since January 2019, and I have trying to help other communities ever since about voice applications and a Google Assistant.
Awesome, that's cool. It's funny to see people coming from other careers jumping to tech and stuff like that. So if you can explain how has been your switch between being a lawyer and now being a voice app developer for other people that are trying to switch careers. So if you can explain more about that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I haven't technically made the switch because I am still a lawyer. I still run a law firm and partly run. And I haven't made the switch, professionally, but picking up development as a hobby is something that I know very well because I have been doing it ever since I was a kid. That started with something like a game I liked, and I wanted to build something similar. It was a online role-playing game, but with a text-based one, not a whole graphic one. And I was trying to build the same thing with my friend. Obviously, we failed. We were 11, and that's how we started. And then that passion actually led me to be better and better as I grew older. And as far as making the switch goes, I'd say what helps me the most is putting my stuff out there, because before actions on Google and voice applications, I would never put my stuff out there. I would just learn something new, but always think that I would have so much more things to learn, which I did. So that's why I would never put something out. No open source projects, no production applications. And I learned that it was bad, and it actually has a name. Its name is analysis paralysis, I guess. It means that you're afraid that you don't know enough, so you never put something out there, and it's really making it hard for you to make the switch or be good at what you're doing or be recognized for it. So that changed actually, and that's thanks to communities. My community actually pushed me to release the first voice application that I made, and that later they pushed me to do the talk, and that's why I love communities.
It's so nice that you tell us that, because most of the people we have in our community, I think they're looking either to make the change or just go out there, create something new. And it's important to have this kind of role models that help us like get that, he can do it, I can do it, we can all do it. We have the community to do that. So that's great.
Yeah, thanks for saying that I'm a role model.
You are.
Glad I can help. Yeah, I'm glad I can help.
That's cool.
Well, I think we can get started with your presentation. We will take many more time from you, and then we can go ahead and just review some additional questions the viewers give us or just share with us.
I actually have a slide for questions and answers at the end. So if
Awesome.
you just translate the questions on the private chat, we can just answer it there. So
For
cool.
sure.
Let's start.
So let's start. Good luck.
So,
Today we're going to talk about something that I love talking about. It's called a voice revolution. Don't worry, I'll write code later in the presentation. But first, I'd like to introduce you to what voice assistants actually are, because we all have our stigmas about voice platforms. I know I did, because we are a generation who grew up with bad voice assistants, bad voice applications, or bad speech-to-text recognition. That was because the technology wasn't sufficient yet, and that's why all the sitcoms made fun of it. Do you remember How I Met Your Mother's, 30 years later Star Wars episode? They were trying to tell the TV to play Star Wars, but they couldn't because TV didn't understand what they were saying in perfect English. Well, we've already overcame that barrier. So I'm going to explain you how and why now we should develop voice applications. Well, as you can see from the graph, this is something that I use in almost every one of my presentations because it really sums the question in hand very well. This means that there is a development in the computer world, there's a revolution in the computer world every 10 years that changes how we interact with computers drastically. For example, when desktops came at homes, computers were no longer huge machines that were only available at universities or big companies. They were something that can be in your house, and that changed how we actually relate to them. Later down the road, at like 97 or early 2000s, we had internet and we had the dot-com bubble, so to speak. So that meant that computers just stopped being glorified calculators and started being a means to reach information faster and more reliably. That changed how we interacted with computers again, and we can never go back from any of these revolutions. Can you imagine an era without an internet? I mean, it's basically impossible. And at 2007, which I'm sure most of you remember, we got the mobile revolution, and it starts with iPhone. Now, you might be thinking, why does it start with iPhone? Because we had smartphones before iPhone, we had touch phones before iPhone. They actually just did essentially nothing new, but they did the two together and better than everyone else. Now, why better? Because they perfected the user experience. That's what iPhone did that others were trying to do at the time, thanks to multi-touch screen and the fastest, one of the fastest screens available as far as I know. That changed how users use their phone, because before that, professionals were using BlackBerries because they needed fast typing ability on their phone, and that's why they needed a physical QWERTY keyboard. And all the other people were using either Nokia's or other popular brands, but they were either not using smartphones at all, or they were using Symbian OS, which had actual applications that are running on them, but they were hard to find and not compatible with every other phone. Well, when iPhone introduced that it can do both of these things and they can make it better, and they introduced multi-touch and gestures, it meant that our user experience changed for the better. It got easier. We were able to use more intuitive gestures with computers, with a smartphone, and that actually allowed the computer to understand us better, and that allowed us to communicate with it easier. That's why it was such a revolution. It was such a big deal. And now we're having a similar revolution on the terms of user experience being easier with assistants. Right now, if you're using a smartphone, you have to learn how to use it. I'm not saying it's hard. It's actually very easy and intuitive. This means that even someone who doesn't know and doesn't get a tutorial on it will pick up at least the basics of it in under an hour, easy. But you still have to learn something. You still have to spend that a little bit of struggle to learn where is that, where everything is. But with assistance, we have something different. It means that we will be able to use our usual ability, our very common ability that we have as humans. We're going to be able to talk to computers and they'll just understand us. And I'm not saying just give them voice commands. I'm literally saying talk, because that's what we do in a human conversation. We don't always say the same things in the same order to get the same thing done. And assistants actually can understand, even if you use different words, use different phrasings, and that's the magic of it. The slide hasn't been translated, it's just this one. But ambient computing is an English term. It means that if I can talk to air and get things done, without realizing I'm talking to a computer or doesn't really think about it, and it means that I have reached ambient computing level. This is obviously an oversimplified explanation, but it's actually something we're familiar with. It's all in the fictional world. It's actually something that we've been dreaming about for so long. And Jarvis, if you watched her, Samantha, these guys are actually examples of ambient computing. They can run your entire life just by you giving them commands, like as you would give them to a human being. Nothing special. And another oversimplification in terms of technologies that requires to develop to have perfect ambient computings, we need things that can go, connect to internet. IoT, Internet of Things. It means that my bulb can talk to my toaster, and when I turn the bulb on, my toaster can work too. Obviously, that's not a real scenario in my house, but you get the idea. And the second thing is digital assistants. This is what we're going to be focusing on today, along with voice applications, because you need some interface to control these other devices, plus you need some interface to give the users answers that they're looking for or reach the services that they are trying to reach. And this is different in terms of user experience than anything else we've had before, because everything else we've had are actually communications that rely on physical touch. And gestures, you have to touch, or keypads when you're trying to get into a building and you punch a keypad. And these things, keyboards, these are about to be old, by the way. These are all touch-based, and you need a physical communication method. You can think of it like a sign language. But when an assistant or another device talks to you, actually in voice, your brain automatically assigns them a persona. It tries to decipher what kind of a being that you're talking to. And I'm not just saying assigns them a gender or assigns them an age. I'm saying an entire personality because of the words they choose. This actually happens very often with human-to-human interaction, but we usually have more to go on. The looks of the human, or other smell of them, maybe other cues that we have. Our brain really processes them really quickly and starts shaping a persona in our head. Now, when you're trying to do this just by voice, the greatest example of this is talking to someone on the phone that you've never talked before in person or you've never seen. And sometimes I do have interactions like that because of my job, being a lawyer. And when I'm talking on the phone, I realize my brain is trying to draw an image of what kind of person I'm talking to. And it happens with non-living things as well. That's why assistants and other voice user interfaces are more special when it comes to user experience. It means our users will be more emotionally invested in our application or our experience. This doesn't mean, when I say emotional, sometimes it gets through as a romantic relationships. I don't want anyone kissing their Google Homes tonight. It's not like that. It's an emotional involvement. That means that we get more angry if it doesn't understand us, and we are more happy if it does. Now, these are some things that you may be familiar with. This one on the left is actually from iPhone 4 before Apple put Siri on iPhones, and the other one is actually from Android, either 1 or 2. It's a speech recognition technology. Both of them actually were in the phones, but if you ever given them a try, they weren't proper voice assistants. But why? Why do we have the voice assistants now instead of then? Because we apparently had the technology. Well, because the technology wasn't good enough. And right now, the developments in the areas of speech recognition and natural language understanding made us able to build perfect or near perfect voice user interfaces or conversational user interfaces. When I say voice user interface, it just means that something that can get voice commands. I mean, if you just push hard enough, the clappers that we used to have on lights in some parts of our houses, they were voice user interfaces technically. But voice user interface on its own is not an assistant. And conversational user interfaces are actually chatbots, and they are usually written. They are text-based. So when you combine these together, you have digital assistants. Now, for Google Assistant, I mean, this is what we're here to talk about. How does it fit in this voice revolution picture, and why should we care as developers? Because all is well, but as far as development goes, I haven't talked about anything yet. First of all, Google Assistant is a digital assistant that Google introduced in 2016. It's currently available in 19 languages in 80 countries, and it has been on more than 1 billion devices over a year now. So it is actually a huge product, and it has over 1 million actions on it. Actions are third-party developers' applications, basically. That means that if you develop an action, you can put your action in 80 countries, in 19 languages, and over 1 billion devices. And I know 1 million actions sounds like a big number, but as far as mobile application stores goes, 1 million is just a tiny number. We're talking about billions on Android right now, or iOS. So this means that developers have a way of developing their own action on the platform. Google Assistant is the product itself, and it's the conversation between user and Google. The devices, I have one right here, maybe you can see, yeah, there. It's a Google Home device. These devices are connected to internet and power all the time, and they if you give them the hot word, the word that's written on me right now, but I'm not going to say, I'm just going to say, okay, G, to avoid triggering any devices in your home. These devices listen to the hot word, and when you give them the hot word, they actually get triggered and give you the answer you're looking for, get you the service that you're looking to get, or turn the TV on or off, or any other device that you have connected to internet. Cool, and these devices can also run actions, which brings us to our third part of this platform, Actions on Google. Actions on Google, as I've said, is a platform that allows third-party developers such as ourselves to build their own voice experiences on this platform and help their users in a faster, more reliable, and conversational-based way. If you want to develop an action but don't know where to start, it might be a good idea to select a starting point that you already know and you're already familiar with. For example, if you're a content owner, you can just create a content action, basically by using structured data. If you're an Android app developer, you can use what we call app actions to connect, or rather trigger, your application through Google Assistant. Although I should warn you that not all types of applications will have support for app actions. You have to check for your specific Android app if it has support for that category. If you want to be some innovator, if you want to really experience conversation design and voice application development to the fullest, you can do what we're going to do today and develop a voice application using Dialogflow, and even use interactive canvas to turn it into a game. And if you're a hardware developer, you can use Smart Home SDK to connect your devices to Google Assistant. Right now, Assistant has its own directory, which is something like a App Store or Play Store, which is where actions live. You can put your action here, and it can be discovered from new users, by new users, but it can also be discovered in other ways. Now, actions aren't developed aren't downloaded on the device. We don't download, we don't install actions are similar to websites in terms of user discovery and user access perspectives. What I mean is that when I want to go to a website, I just open a web browser, and if I know the address, I just write www.address.com and I just go there. Or if I don't know what I'm looking for, I can just ask Google what I want to do, and it'll just offer me a website that can do it. Actions have a very similar perspective on the matter. If a user knows the name of your application or action in this context, they can just say, okay, G, talk to personal chef, and the name personal chef is the name of the action, and the action will just be triggered, and you'll handle the requests coming to that action in your server or serverless background. I'll just talk about them in a second. But if the users don't know, if you haven't been advertising, they probably won't know the name of your action. Users might go to assistant directory to search what they're looking for, obviously, but there's also one more way to discovery, that is implicit triggering. Implicit triggering means users know what they want to do, but they don't know how they can do it. So they just ask Google. They say, Google, I want to work out, and Google actually recommends an action. It might be yours, it might be mine, it might be some other developer's action. Whichever is the best action there is, Google will calculate it just like it calculates with websites, and it'll recommend it to the user, so that user will talk to your action directly and learn your action's name in the meantime, so that they can come back to it later using explicit triggering, that is using its full name. But how does this all work? I mean, if users are going to use Google Assistant to reach to my application, Google Assistant is sort of like a web browser in this context. It's an interface. It's just going to get the data and send it to my server if it's my action that's been triggered. Cool. But how am I going to develop it? How am I going to handle the data or the request? Well, this is a flowchart that shows the action's lifecycle. Right now, users, let me just show you my mouse. Okay, users talk, and then the device gets it. Google Assistant turns this speech into text, and it looks for if any action has been triggered. If it has been, it sends the request to your server or serverless background. This could be a cloud. I'm going to use Google Cloud Platform in a second. And you handle the request here, but at this point, you only have user's speech in a text format. If I said, I'm kind of hungry, you have it just like that. I'm kind of hungry. So you have to figure out a way how to parse the data there to understand what user wants. And this could be very hard if user is using a colloquialism, for example, you might not have programmed into, or using different words that you were looking for in your if-else statements at this point. This might be a little hard, but if you parse the user's request and give the response back to assistant will read the response to user. That's cool, but we still have one problem. How are we going to parse the user's input and understand what they're trying to do? That's where Dialogflow comes in. Dialogflow is a natural language understanding tool that Google provides action developers for free. It does two things, and it does them very well, so that you don't have to deal with natural language understanding, or you don't have to have headaches trying to parse the user input. First thing it does very well is intent matching. Intent matching is actually trying to understand what the user is trying to do. Intent has a very good definition that I really like. It means a goal the user is trying to reach by using similar phrases. This means that intents are intent is one goal that user is trying to accomplish by using similarly structured phrases or using the same words over and over again. This might mean that I want a pizza, I want a hamburger, I want to eat cake, I want to eat salad. These are all the same intent. I am trying to gain weight or get food. And this means that these intents can be bunched up together, can be bundled together in Dialogflow. And if you teach them to Dialogflow, Dialogflow will match the user's phrase or whatever user is saying to one of these intents that we have thought it, and it will be matched to an intent. That way, we won't have to figure out what the user is trying to do. Dialogflow will just send us a JSON that says exactly that. That's cool, but as I said, if I'm trying to gain weight, I might choose my own poison and go with pizza or hamburger or something unhealthy, something other unhealthy food. But if these are all same intents, how are we going to differentiate between the hamburger and pizza on backend? Well, that's where entities come in. Entities are actually parameters that users use in their speech to accomplish the same goal in just a different manner. These are entities, and you can define developer entities or use one of system entities that Dialogflow already has in it. You can use one of those to differentiate what the user is trying to do, and entity extraction, when it's completed, will also be included in Dialogflow's JSON that is sent to your server. That means that on your backend, all you will have is just a JSON file that has the intent that your user is trying to invoke and the entities that they're using in their speech. It would be the same if you developed a mobile application and users just selected, what they wanted to do and what they wanted to eat and clicked OK, and that JSON request would go to your backend server and it would be pretty much the same. So with Dialogflow, our lifecycle has changed a little bit. User talks to the device. Device sends request to Dialogflow first. Dialogflow actually runs an LU and intent matches and entity extracts, and then it sends it to our fulfillment. Our fulfillment, we just write some JavaScript code or Java or Kotlin if you want, and then we can just respond to the user because we now know what the user is trying to do and we know the proper response to it. We just respond and the device will read the response to user. Very good, very cool. As I said, we can use Node.js client library, or we can use Java or Kotlin libraries. Or if you're so inclined, there's also a REST API. But I would prefer, I would recommend you use a client library to easily handle much more complicated stuff. I have seen someone try to use PHP on a hackathon, and it was a 48-hour hackathon. He spent the first 24 trying to build a client library out of PHP. I mean, other groups learned JavaScript in 24 hours. I mean, learned enough to write code for the hackathon. So, I would recommend picking up one of the supported client libraries. Okay, so we have been talking about voice applications for a while now. And before moving on writing code, I want to show you what kind of visual cues that you can show to your users. Be warned that not all users will have screens while using your application or action, because our phones, yes, they do have screens, or smart displays, yes, they do have screens, but smart speakers don't. And smart speaker usage is being, is growing exponentially. So you might want to think about what users' context will be before relying on visuals. I personally try to develop the voice application in terms of voice and conversation first, and then add some visuals to support it if user have a screen. If not, no worries, they can still use my action. You can obviously show text. This is a given. You can also show suggestion chips, these chips. You can guide the user. You can show cards. And you're familiar with cards. There's a picture, there's a title, there's a description, and there's a button. These are great for when you're trying to showcase something. I have an action for Pokemon information. It's called Professor Binary. Like if you get the joke, it's called Professor Binary, and it shows the pictures of Pokemon right here. You can use lists or carousels to make the user be able to select something by touching. But it's really not a voice first, approach. So try not to use too many items on a list. And you can use interactive canvas if you want to have the whole control of the screen. If you're building a game, for example, you want the flashy graphics, right, as flashy as it can get with interactive canvas. So it's basically a visual component that allows you to take the control of entire screen and print whatever you want with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, the technologies we all love and use every day. almost every day. Well, these actually interactive canvas allows you to make games that can be controlled by voice. So anything you build with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript will be able to controlled through users' input. These are great, and if you want to build a game, go ahead. Don't think that you can't build a proper game or a fun game using HTML, CSS, or JavaScript, because you can, because gaming is not just graphics. There is an example game right now. If you have a smart display or a assistant device that has a screen, you might want to try. It's called Are You Feeling Lucky? And it uses interactive canvas to print all these flashy visuals on screen. And when I talk about voice applications, and developers usually ask, how do they make money with it? First and foremost, you can't make money by showing or making them listen advertisements. There is no support right now, so you have to find another way, basically, to make a sale to earn money. This could be something physical, some service or product that you're selling through voice assistant, through Google Assistant, or this could be something digital. For example, you can sell a subscription service. Audiobook applications do that, or meditation applications do that. Or you can sell digital goods, one-off digital goods. These could be guns in a game. This could be episode of a game. You have to be creative enough to find something that users will want to buy and use the transaction API to earn money through Google Assistant. I know it sounds far-fetched right now, but there are actually really great examples of earning a lot of money on a niche platform. And one of these examples is actually Pokemon Go. I know it's not voice-based, but it's a very niche application as far as being niche goes. It's actually something that has been tried before but not succeeded, and no one would probably believe you could make millions of dollars of profit with an application that actually wants user to take 500 steps to hatch an egg. 500, I think that was a bit optimistic. So, and you might be thinking nobody plays Pokemon Go anymore, but that's not true. 2019 was their most profitable year. Yeah. So you can earn money if you're creative enough to build something that users will want to buy. Now, coding. As I said at the beginning of the presentation, if you have any questions or any questions from this point on, you can ask them on live comment section, or I don't know which other channels, maybe Twitter, I have no idea. You can ask them, and they will translate the question for me if it's not in English, and I will try to answer this after the code lab. Okay, so this is a action that I have created brand new. It's called CodeLab. We're going to create an action that asks the user their favorite color and then get the input, count the letters in that color. For example, if I said blue, it would count to 4. And then we could render a response to user saying your lucky number is 4. This is a very simple action, and we're going to build it together right now. This is the actions on Google console. Right now, it's on kind of mobile version because I'm trying to see myself and do this at the same time. This is the panel you're going to be created with. You can just click develop and click build, and then it'll create a dialog flow agent for you. I did all this beforehand because I wanted to save some time for the questions at the end. So Dialogflow agent is actually connected to your Google project, and this place will handle the user input and send the JSON to your server or serverless backend. Now, you might be thinking, I want to try this platform, but I don't want to create a serverless backend right away. That's great because you can use Cloud Functions. You can even use them through inline editor here, so that you don't have to go through any complex backend structuring to just do a code lab. That's what I'm going to do today. We're going to use Google Cloud Functions through Dialogflow's inline editor. I'm going to write my code here. This is not my code. I'm going to write my code here. It's going to be a lot simpler than this, and then it's going to fulfill our user's request, and we will have our action. And I'm going to be using my phone to test the action. Now, you might be thinking, how am I going to use my phone? It's not connected to my computer, because Actions on Google actually allows me to use any device that's using an assistant with the same Gmail account that I'm developing the action with as a test account without doing anything else. It's just automatically happens. It's perfect. All right, let's start. Now, as far as actions on Google Console goes, we don't have a lot to do here right now because I already went ahead and created the Dialogflow agent. As I said, it's just 2 clicks, develop and build. And then a Dialogflow agent has 2 intents right now. Now, remember what we talked about. Intents are goals that users are trying to achieve with similarly structured phrases or sentences. That's great. What do these 2 default intents do for us? Well, these are automatically given you by Dialogflow, and one of them, welcome intent, actually welcomes the user. You didn't guess that, right? And it welcomes the user. It's the first intent that's been triggered, and this is where you're going to say, hello, what's your favorite color? Or hello, welcome, what's your favorite color? And the other intent, fallback intent, is actually something special. This is the intent that gets triggered when Dialogflow doesn't match what the user is trying to do with anything else you have defined here. That means that we're not going to be looking at fallback intent today, but we will be changing welcome intent. Right now, as you can see, welcome intent has training phrases. Training phrases are phrases that you teach Dialogflow that are examples of what users might say. For example, for a welcome intent, users might say, hey, how are you? And you might want to greet the user. But I don't want my welcome intent to be triggered when user says, hey there, or hi there. I want my welcome intent to be triggered only at the beginning of the interaction. And that's handled by this event right here. So I don't need any training phrase. I'm going to delete them all. Cool. Right now, my action will only be triggered at the beginning of the interaction through this event and never again. Cool. And right now, the default welcome responses are, hi, how are you doing? Hello, how can I help you? One of these randomly will appear on user's screen, and user will hear one of these. But I don't want mine to sound like a generic welcome response because I'm already going to need more information from the user after welcoming them. So I'm going to say, hey, welcome. What's your favorite color? Cool. I can add more if I want to, and it'll just be randomized when user actually tries to use my action or triggers this intent. But for now, it's good for my purposes, and I'm going to click save. I know putting the save up top is a little bit of an odd choice, but don't forget to click save, please. All right, we might now give it a good test. I'm going to open Google Assistant. I'm going to, okay. When you click see how it works in Google Assistant, it tags the application and sends it to Google. Right now it's enabling testing for me to test on my phone. Okay, testing enabled. I'm going to be, hold on. I'm going to trigger Google Assistant here and say, talk to my test app.
Here's the test version of my test app. Hey, welcome. What's your favorite color?
I can also see the transcription on screen, but you can't. I'm just going to end this interaction with it right now. As you can see, we have successfully customized our welcome intent. Cool. Right now, what we have to do, we ask their favorite color, but we have no way of getting what that color is. If a user says red, what am I going to do? Nothing right now. So I have to create an intent to catch the user input. Well, I need to train the Dialogflow to teach it what kind of responses users might give to my previous question. Well, if you ask someone, what's your favorite color? The first thing they're going to do is just reply with a color. As you can see, Dialogflow recognizes color names because it's a system entity, which means that you don't have to define it separately. Right now it says, I get that this is a color, and it's okay by me because I want to do it, so it's all good. Users might say, I like red. Again, Dialogflow recognizes color. Or they can say, my favorite color, here's another color, is purple. You can see these are just examples. And I don't have to put all the colors in here manually, or just, I don't have to do something like this. My favorite color is red. I don't have to do this because I already have one example with this, and Dialogflow is just going to understand it. It's that good. So I don't need this. In actions and parameters, you can actually check if you have all the system entities or developer entities you wanted to, and you can make them required. But for now, I'm not going to make them required because it's just going to add another complexity I don't want you to deal with right now. And we can give them a response. Now, if you remember, my response was going to be the letter count of this color, of the user's favorite color, combined with the phrase your lucky number is. However, right now, I can only send a text response, and I have no way of counting the length of user's input. That means that I have to find a way to do it through my fulfillment. But for testing purposes, I'm just going to write what the user said to us right back here. Your favorite color is, and I'm going to use $color to tell them, repeat them what they just said. I can save this. As you can see, I forgot to put an intent name. That's why I tried to filled with a training phrase right now. But I'm going to change this intent name to favorite color. I'm going to save this. And save. You will see that agent training is started. Will start in a moment. And we completed. This means that Dialogflow's natural language understanding model has been trained to understand this intent, to complete this interaction. Cool. Let's try if it actually gives the response that I have just written. I'm going to trigger assistant again. Talk to my test app.
Here's the test version of my test app.
Hey, welcome. What's your favorite color?
Red.
Your favorite color is red.
Yeah, thanks. So as you can see, it's the most unhelpful action there is, and I'm very proud to have developed it. But I want to make it, more complicated, make it more complex. So I want to build a fulfillment. Now I'm going to share a link with you that has this code lab written, so that you will have somewhere to copy and paste the code. I can actually, I think I can share it with GDG organizers right now, and they can share it with you through comment section. Hold on. All right, this link will take you to a page where you can copy and paste the code I'm about to write. First, let's go ahead and get to fulfillment. Enable our inline editor. I'm going to delete everything that's here, and I'm just going to paste my code. As you can see in package.json, actions on Google is already a dependency, so I won't have to worry about my dependencies here. I only have to focus the JavaScript code. Use strict means that I'm going to write JavaScript following certain rules. I'm going to import actions on Google or Dialogflow from actions on Google package. I'm going to import functions because I'm using Firebase functions for this. And as you can see, I'm going to have Firebase functions create a Firebase function to handle all the requests that's coming here. Lost my words there. So this means that the code that's not boilerplate are here. These are all will probably be the same for many of your actions. So what I'm doing here is I'm creating an instance of Dialogflow object called app, and this app object actually has a method called intent. Intent method is the method that will actually match the intent that's coming from Dialogflow and trigger this function. So if a user triggers the favorite color intent, it will trigger this function. Cool, very cool. And this conversation object is the object that will allow us to communicate with our user, meaning that when I say conversation close, your lucky number is, this actually will close the conversation after saying this. Good. So there's also one more thing that I have here. It's the color parameter. The second argument of this is actually parameters. So I could just do parameters, and I could come here and I could say constant color constant color params dot color. I could do this, and it would still work. But for ES6 fans out there, we can just destructure this second argument and get the color from it. This is the color that user picked, obviously. So here I'm creating a variable called lucky number variable. I am mispronouncing that word all the time because it was a word that I have learned before I learned English properly. I was a kid, so it fossilized in my mind like that. Sorry. So I create a variable here, and I just count the length of the color. And I say conversation close by saying your lucky number is lucky number. It's actually pretty straightforward, but I am currently making a crucial mistake that will break my application. My intent name has a dash in between the words. It's kebab case, if you want to call it that, in Dialogflow's intent section, but right now it has a space. This won't work. Your naming is a string that has to match exactly. Now I fixed it. I can press deploy, and it will deploy my code, and it might take a while. It sometimes does, but that's okay because it actually saves me a lot of time by deploying it to a cloud function instead of me trying to build some serverless backend or God forbid try to use the server to handle this request. So I'm just going to wait until it deploys. There's actually a way, by the way, to bypass this deployment every time you make a change. You can just create the Firebase Functions project on your computer, and on your computer you can use ngrok to open your traffic to other other computers, and ngrok will actually, you can just put your ngrok URL to this webhook line and use Firebase serve functionality to serve the cloud function through your computer to here. I know it sounds complicated, but believe me, it's not. And once you've done it, every time you press Control-S and save your code, it'll be immediately available on your action so that you can do fast development without waiting for deployment. That's a pro tip. Wow, it sure is taking its time. I'm even considering. Oh, okay, cool. It's deployed right now, but I have made another mistake that I haven't told you, so it won't work. Let me show you. Talk to my test app.
Getting the test version of my test app.
Hey, welcome. What's your favorite color?
Red.
Your favorite color is red.
It's still giving me the old response, and I don't want the old response. I want the cool new response. I want to learn what my lucky number is. So why is it doing that? Because you have to manually enable webhook fulfillment in the intents training, under responses. You have to enable webhook call. Otherwise, your webhook code won't be triggered when it matches this intent. This is a very common mistake. I do it like daily because it's hidden down here, so that I always make the mistakes on presentations to make it stick in viewers' mind. That's another pro tip for public speaking. All right, right now it should work if I haven't made any other mistakes that I'm not aware of. Talk to my test app.
Getting the test version of my test app.
Hey, welcome. What's your favorite color?
Red.
Your lucky number is 3.
Good to know. And that's it. We have developed our first action successfully, and you now know how to talk to your users, get a response, and run a business logic based on that response, and then talk to your users again, but this time having fulfilled their request. Now, if you have any questions, as I said, you can go back to my presentation and answer them. I still have a little bit of a summary at the end, but I'd like to answer the questions before I finish my talk. So hit me.
So thank you, Yüksel, for your amazing talk. It was like, I mean, I loved talking about talking devices and all of those things. So that was fun and super cool to learn. And we have a few questions here. Marco Sevilla is asking, which device gives the best Google Assistant experience for you? And a few examples like iPhone, Nest Mini, Nest Hub, or something like that. In your experience, what's the best device for getting a best experience in Google Assistant?
Well, best experience actually depends on my context, because if I'm in the kitchen, actually smart display or a phone with a screen is more helpful. But when I'm laying on my bed, before going to bed, or when I'm driving, something that doesn't have a screen is actually a better experience for me. So that's why you have to think, voice forward to catch all this user context information and treat them accordingly. But as far as overall best, I love this little guy because it's loud enough that it fills this entire room with its voice. It can understand me wherever I'm in this room, and it's a smart speaker. And I actually like not having to look at a screen when I'm just trying to get a simple response. So I'd say smart speaker is currently my best choice. But as I said, it may depend on the context that I'm in.
Awesome. Let's see. Let's give the audience a couple of seconds so we can get the questions or comments here in our box.
Sure.
But tell us, what is your favorite thing about Google Assistant?
Oh yeah, so many things, obviously. But well, there have been a couple of aha moments that I said, okay, this is here to stay. One of them was actually I try to force Google to make jokes. I try to find the little Easter eggs that everyone is looking for. So there's this sitcom, I don't know if you've watched, it's called The Good Place. I love it.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, Janet, the assistant of heaven. I was watching The Good Place, and after a couple episodes, I started to think that Janet is just a very good voice assistant. And I was like, okay, G, do you know about Janet? And let's try it right now. Let's just try it right now. I really love it that they put this.
That's nice. Yeah, Janet's, it's like, I don't know, she's funny, she's intelligent, she's spicy, she's everything.
Yeah. And listen to what Google says. Do you know Janet?
Janet and I have a lot in common, but she has a few extra features and her own personal void.
Something like that. So these were my first aha moment. It actually showed me that you could laugh at the joke of a robot. This was first. The second one was I got a really clear answer to such a specific question. My friend asked me if I could, if he were to buy the same keyboard as I have. It's a Logitech K380. He asked me if he were to buy it, if he could be able to use it with his smart TV. Now, it's a Bluetooth keyboard, and I knew he could, but I just wanted to make sure, didn't want to make a Google search. So I just asked Google. I asked Google, okay, G, can I use my Logitech K380 with a smart TV? And it just said, yes, you can. And it explained a few more details. And it was it. It was such a specific question that I didn't have to type because it was available to me right then. And ever since, I'm just, I'm just using voice search a lot more and, try to make jokes with it. It also has jokes about Harry Potter, Carmen Sandiego, not Carmen Sandiego.
Carmen Sandiego,
yeah. So it's great.
That's great. And for the people that is hearing us and watching us, you can do that too in Spanish. So
yeah.
You don't need to ask Google on English to get all these Easter eggs. So that's amazing too.
Obviously. One thing about talking, it's actually, as I said, more emotionally involved activity than touching. So you might be comfortable with using an English phone or an English application, but you're definitely not going to be very comfortable using a voice assistant that's not your native language or a language that you can talk really well.
Exactly.
That's something that I talk in more advanced topics. I talk about localization of actions and how I might translate an action that Oscar developed, but it might not translate well enough to Turkish because, because of idioms, because of our way of saying things might be a little bit different than yours, and that sort of stuff. It might not be correctly translated.
So we have a question now. Yeah. Jaime Alvarez is asking us, what do you think Google Assistant or Dialogflow lacks? What is missing?
Excellent question. This actually, this is a perfect question. So right now, Google Assistant actually can be bilingual on your phone. So this means that you can use 2 languages at the same time.
That's true.
This is great. This is great. Well done. But Dialogflow can't do this. So when you're developing an action, you're actually locked into a language. And if your language is anything like ours, we use a lot of English words. I mean, in contexts of, for example, computer science, we have some translations for some terms, but not all of them. So if I were to develop an action for computer programmers and they were to learn about Python, the assistant or Dialogflow won't just get it because it's trying to understand it in Turkish. And I would love Dialogflow to work bilingually, but it currently lacks that feature. So for example, if you were to develop an action that teaches language, it has to speak in the language that it teaches. Otherwise, you're done. That's bad.
Yeah, exactly.
But I believe that it'll get it, but that's just belief, speculation, nothing else.
We don't know for sure when it's gonna be available, but yeah, that's nice. Well, Marcos, do you have another question or ask Oscar?
So talking about Dialogflow, I was thinking about if in any time in the future will be like another technology to work with Google Assistant, like using another language like Python, or I don't know, maybe if we could. Oh, so I don't know if actually Dialogflow works with TypeScript or something like that, but I believe it's only JavaScript. Do you think that another technology will be like the successor of JavaScript eventually for Dialogflow?
Well, as I said, there's actually a REST API, so you don't have to use JavaScript. It's just right now it's the most asked language about Google Assistant on Stack Overflow, which makes it a lot easier to solve your problems, as all of us know. That's why JavaScript is at a more advantageous point than all the other client libraries. But as I said, Java and Kotlin are already supported. And if you're asking if any other language will be supported in the future, I don't know any official thing. But I know there are third-party client libraries as well. So you might want to search for the specific language you're looking for. And if you can't find it, I think you can use TypeScript because it'll just compile into JavaScript in the end. But I have no further information about the roadmap of this SDK or client library.
Awesome.
Yeah, I have a question. I mean, I always when I talking with people who work with voice assistant and things like that, and you mentioned it, her movie. So, and now it's Google presented the Google earbuds, and I saw this. Whoa, we are closer to the movies. You remember to movies like same device. So, do you think how far away we are from reaching the same level context in conversational flows for Google Assistant or device like that?
Well, we're very far away right now because in those movies, there is a perfect AI that can actually match the intent of the user without me teaching it to Dialogflow or any other natural language understanding platform. Right now, we don't have a perfect AI, unfortunately, and I don't know if we're ever going to have. I mean, we probably have, but not in the near future, in my opinion, or as I said, we might have a conversational perfect AI in the near future, but it won't be directly available in assistants. But right now, what we're trying to do is we're designing conversations. There's a job called conversation designer. It's a specialty. And they're trying to make it look like it's a perfect AI through the magic of conversation design. So it's easy to impress the users right now, but I don't think we're going to reach to the level of Jarvis, for example, that can render an entire Iron Man suit just based on a voice command. But as I said, right now the users and the technology is okay with a not perfect AI, because we're trying to make it okay. And in the near future, I don't think we're going to get a perfect conversational AI. We'll just have to work through these mistakes until we get it, or not mistakes, but these crevices, if you will. So, but as I said, we're not going to be falling in love with our devices anytime soon, I believe, hopefully. And but yeah.
That's good. We have another question here from Jonathan. What can we expect in the future of assistant? Quite related to the one that Oscar asked. Will they rule the world?
Well, actually, this actually depends on the definition of ruling the world. I mean, are smartphones ruling the world right now? If you think yes, so yeah, I think voice assistants will be a huge part of our lives as well. I'm not saying they're going to replace smartphones. I'm thinking another device that will get our attention, and it might not be in any form factor that we are currently familiar with. It might not be a speaker, it might not be a phone, it might be something entirely new that we currently can't just think about right now. And if you're asking me, will we depend on voice assistants more and more in our daily lives? Of course. I mean, I'm always giving the example of kids. If you have any kids right now around you, like 5, 6, they're already very familiar with voice assistants. They love Siri. They're asking them questions, or they want to chat with them. This is all fine. And a couple years older generation, 9, 10, or 11, are trying to touch the screens on malls, even though they're not touch screens, because they weren't born into a world without touch screens. I actually saw kids that they try to touch any screen that is not on landscape. That's if it's on portrait mode, they're gonna touch that. And they're going to be frustrated when it doesn't respond to that touch, because they were a generation of touch, and the next generation will be the generation of voice, and they will not take devices or buy devices that doesn't talk or be talked to. Your oven might not talk itself, but you might be still able to use it talking through another device. So yeah, if that's the definition of ruling the world, I think that voice will rule the world in that sense, but I don't think they're going to make us work for them. I am working for them, but I want it. They are not forcing me.
Volunteering. Yeah. Okay, that's good. And I like what you say about the voice generation. And I believe people that are interested in developing for voice applications, they need to think about that. Like, that's the audience you need to reach. The ones that are already familiar with making these searches on voice, just expecting a voice response as well. So that's really good.
Yeah, I mean, it's like YouTube in early days. All the audience were kids, so everyone had to shout. Yeah, right now they can make more and more intelligent content and put better, more educational content on their channels, because those kids grew up. And so they're fans now. But right now it's like baby steps. And it was also pretty much the same with iPhone as well. Like iPhone came out in 2008, 2007, and App Store came out in 2008. But nobody really took it seriously as an application development platform until a game came and changed everything. It was Angry Birds. It like completely destroyed our understanding of app development. Because Rovio made a lot of money. So yeah, that's actually, I think, where this will go.
Yeah. Now talking about market and what we can do with application. Do you think there is a market access for people to make a career building voice apps in the future? Like, I mean, I work as Python developer, something like that. Do I have the opportunity to jump to a new area and expect at least have a future closer to this?
Well, I don't know, because I'm not actually working in the tech industry right now, actively or full time. So I am not sure how many years it's going to take before it actually becomes a mainstream job. But right now, we actually have jobs as voice app developers. I met several people that are developing voice applications for professional companies or big companies. And we also have conversational designers. As I said, they design the conversation for both chatbots of big firms, which are very common right now, and the voice user interfaces of those same firms. That means that we're not actually, we are a niche job field, but we're not really far away from the future that people will actually title them as voice app developer, people other than me or 5 other guys that describes themselves as that. So, but I don't know how many years it's gonna take. It's actually gonna depend on whenever people may start making big amounts of money out of this, just like, you know, iPhones. When someone gets rich, everyone wants to get rich. So yeah, they create the job to get rich.
We need that boom. Okay. Yeah. That's good. But still, it's a great tool to start just playing around, maybe just seeing the potential. And if it works within what you have in mind to create an application, I think it's great to integrate it already, or just think how to be.
Exactly. And I think it's a very good starting point to programming as well. I mean, I know it seems complicated, but believe me, it's not. And its output is actually much more concrete than many other programming fields. I mean, I think the closest rewarding experience to this is web development, because you actually see the 2 boxes come together on screen. But other than that, right now, being able to create something that can talk and understand you, I think it's magical, and it's very rewarding. And if you're trying to learn JavaScript, just pick this up, and you'll be loving the language even more, and you'll be creating actions in no time.
Awesome. Okay, I think you had a recap.
Yes, I can recap.
Let's jump to that.
Let's start with a few resources to get you started. These are a few links that you can go to and jumpstart your development on Actions on Google. Right now, users, as we've talked about, are actually very much in love with their speakers or voice-enabled devices. And they're mostly trying to have fun on these devices, by the way. This is what the statistics show us. Asking fun questions, this is what I've been doing and what I've been explaining. Try to say Avada Kedavra to your smart speaker after the presentation. It's a good Easter egg. So this is just the beginning, though. This is only the tip of the iceberg, because this graphic shows us the adoption rates in US. This basically means that how fast that users can adapt to a technology. And as you can see, cable TV is the slowest, because it was probably, it started very early. And ever since the 90s, people have been, adopting new technologies faster and faster. And smartphones have actually been adopted less than 10 years, and they were the center of our lives all of a sudden. And this means that users are actually, there's a trend towards a new technology. They're actually faster to adopt the new technology. Where does smart speakers lay? Right here. So if a line is, closer to a 90-degree angle, it's actually faster as velocity. So as you can see, smart speakers almost have the same velocity as social media, which is crazy. And I think it's going to just get faster and faster, but in terms of user engagement. But obviously, every platform has relied on creativity of its developers. So if we create good applications, for example, like Rovio did, if you create good games, good applications on this platform, users will love it even more, and we will be creating the jobs that we just talked about. So it's all our creativity that matters right now. So get on the work, guys. Just start developing voice applications. And thanks for listening to me. You can reach to me at YTOLUN. This is my Twitter account. You can reach out and ask any questions you have about Google Assistant or anything else relating to voice technology. I'm just going to share that through private chat so you can put it on screen.
Awesome. Yeah, I will share it here on the banners. So you want to follow Yüksel or ask him questions, and even I think we can get more of those resources you share on the slide. So that's great. Let me put this here. Thank you. I think it was a great presentation. We haven't had any no detailed talk about Google Assistant, so that was great.
Thanks. Thanks for having me. It was actually fun connecting with you.
With you as well. Well, I think we don't have any more questions, but well, I will add here his Twitter handle right here. So you can follow him and ask him as many questions as you want. And you have this presentation, so you want to go ahead and review all the steps well, I didn't do it, but Yüksel did it. And you can definitely ask us if you need any additional information, maybe the resources we can share on our social media as well. But thank you, Yüksel. It was amazing just to see the potential that we have with voice technologies.
Thanks. Glad to have shared it.
Yeah, and thank you for joining us, and for B2B is the first talk in English, and it's the first time doing this thing, so it's a lot of different things going on. So we enjoyed this live stream a lot, and hope we can see you again in the future.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Awesome. Well, thank you. We'll keep in touch, and maybe see us in a workshop, as we were discussing earlier, and have everyone with their screen and sharing us what they're making with Google Assistant. So thank you again, and talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Yüksel.
Yeah. See you.
So, how are you? Llegamos el switch otra vez.
¿El switch español?
Muchas gracias por habernos acompañado el día de hoy. Como si no se pudieron unir a tiempo, si no pudieron ver toda la presentación en el live, ¿verdad? En línea completamente, pueden volver a ver este video. Definitivamente Yüksel nos compartió muchísimos tips, mucho de su expertise, de lo que él ha hecho, y como él mencionaba, inclusive no es su trabajo de tiempo completo, es algo que le nació, es un interés y que se convirtió en esto, o sea, para que vean el potencial que tiene, tal vez trabajar en algo que nos gusta y nos apasiona.
Exacto.
Y cómo podemos llegar a ser expertos, como lo hice en este caso Yüksel.
Sí. Siempre es interesante ver cómo la parte esencial de todo esto en tecnología es la pasión. Es decir, si queremos hacer switch de carrera o si queremos alcanzar mejores puestos, lo más importante no es quizás lo que conozcas o tus habilidades personales, es la pasión que le puedas poner a eso que quieres lograr. Entonces, solo con pasión podemos llegar bastante largo, obviamente con esfuerzo y dedicación, como dicen. Pero nada, esperamos que hayan disfrutado este live stream. Creo que este será el último que haremos este mes, así que nos miraremos hasta el próximo mes, si no estoy mal. Sí.
Pero es muy probable que nos veamos hasta en junio. Igual quería mencionarles que si tienen algún tema que quieran conversar, ya sea que quieran conversar ustedes o que quieren que nosotros busquemos alguna persona interesada o experta en alguna de las tecnologías, nos dejen saber tal vez en los comentarios aquí, en nuestras redes, por un chat a cualquiera de nosotros, y así vamos a poder darles contenido pues que están necesitando, que quieren aprender, o tal vez que sea nuevo completamente para ustedes.
Exacto. Sí, y lo mismo, si quieren más contenido o en español o en inglés, que les pareció bien que hiciera en inglés, pues también déjenos en los comentarios ahí en Facebook, en Twitter, en nuestras redes sociales, y nosotros haremos lo posible por brindarles a la persona más idónea para ese tema.
Así es. Marcos, ¿tienes algo que agregar?
Bueno, creo que ya lo dijeron todo, me dejaron sin cosas que decir.
No, claro.
Igual manténganse pendientes, igual suscríbanse, ahí ya nos están llegando de que hablemos de Python, así que Oscar, ya sabes, proyectate. Entonces, sí, igual cualquiera de nuestras redes sociales, recuerden que son 3 comunidades, entonces ahí ustedes pueden escoger el tema que quieran. Igual tenemos un abanico de tecnologías que abarcar, y pues ahora con este formato podemos contactar a gente. Imagínense, Yüksel está en Turquía, e igual nos pudimos conectar con él, entonces sí podemos conseguir gente de cualquier parte del mundo, solo es cuadrar bien horarios, así que lo que quieran, o sea, solo nos dicen y lo buscamos a alguien, nosotros resolvemos.
Ustedes pidan, Marcos resuelve.
Nosotros por Twitter escribiendo. Nada, y lo mismo de siempre que hemos mencionado, que esta es su comunidad, ustedes son las que la hacen, no somos nosotros, solo somos servidores para ustedes. y que pidan aquello que necesitan, aquello que sientan que esta comunidad les puede brindar. Siéntanse en la libertad de comentarnos en nuestras redes sociales y que haremos lo posible por poder alcanzar ese objetivo que todos tenemos en común.
Así es. Entonces, creo que nos despedimos por el día de hoy. Quedamos atentos a sus comentarios, preguntas, sugerencias en nuestras redes y también por mensaje directo a alguno de nosotros. Y que tengan excelente sábado y esperamos que este sea de mucho provecho.
Y ya saben, no olviden suscribirse, darle a la campanita que está por este lado, denle a la campanita de suscribirse y compartan este video que llegue a más personas. Y eso, gracias a todos por unirse a este live stream, esperamos verlos pronto, tengan un feliz fin de semana. Abrazos.
Abrazo, bye chicos,
Bye.
cuídense.